The alarms started first. Red lights flashed down the long concrete hallways. Steel doors locked at the same time with a deep metal sound that shook the floor. Inside ADX Florence, the most secure prison in America, something had gone very wrong. In cell block D, an inmate sat completely still. His hands were behind his back. His mouth was open, but no sound came out. Not because he did not want to speak, because no one could hear him. Cameras stared from every corner. Guards rushed past, boots hitting the floor hard. A control room officer shouted orders, but the sound was cut short when one screen went black. Then another. For a prison built so no one could communicate, someone had just sent a message. And no one knew how. The prison went into full lockdown. Inmates were sealed inside their cells. Guards stopped moving. The warden stood frozen in the control room, staring at a single blinking light on the screen. That light meant one thing: contact. Then it disappeared. No one knew if the message had already reached the outside world. No one knew who sent it. And no one knew what would happen next. Hours earlier, the day had started like every other day at ADX Florence. The prison sat alone in the dry land of Colorado. No towns nearby. No tall trees. Just open land and silence. From far away, the prison looked like a gray box pushed into the earth. Inside, silence ruled everything. ADX Florence was built to stop communication. Inmates stayed alone in their cells for most of the day. They ate alone. They walked alone. Even their voices were swallowed by thick concrete walls. Each cell was small. A bed made of concrete. A desk bolted to the floor. A narrow window that showed only the sky. No view of other people. No chance to pass notes. No chance to whisper. This prison held some of the most dangerous criminals in the country. Men who had led gangs. Men who had ordered crimes from behind bars. Men who could not be allowed to speak to anyone. The rules were simple. No talking. No signals. No contact. Guards followed strict routines. Every move was timed. Every door opened and closed by computer. Cameras watched every second. The system had worked for years. Until that day. Earlier that morning, Officer Mark Reynolds arrived for his shift. He had worked at ADX Florence for 6 years. He knew the silence. He trusted the systems. He passed through metal detectors and locked doors. His radio stayed quiet. That was normal. Quiet meant control. Mark walked the hallway of cell block D. He checked the doors. Each inmate stood behind thick glass, unable to touch the outside world. One inmate caught his attention. Daniel Harper. Daniel had arrived at ADX Florence 3 months earlier. He was not loud. He did not cause trouble. He followed the rules. That alone made guards nervous. Daniel was known for planning. Before prison, he had been connected to a large crime network. He never used phones himself. He never sent emails. Yet messages always seemed to move when he wanted them to. That was why he was here. Mark stopped by Daniel's cell and checked the camera feed. Daniel sat on his bed, hands folded, eyes down. Nothing unusual. Mark moved on. Later that day, the prison allowed inmates their short recreation time. One at a time, they were led to small outdoor cages. High walls. Open sky above. Daniel stepped into his cage. He looked up at the sky. Blue and empty. A guard watched from a distance. Daniel raised his hands slowly and stretched. A normal movement. Nothing strange. But the camera caught something small. Daniel tapped his fingers against the concrete wall. Once. Twice. 3 times. The guard did not notice. The sound did not travel far. But somewhere deep inside the prison, a vibration sensor picked it up. The system logged it as noise. Nothing more. Back in the control room, Officer Lisa Turner noticed a minor alert on her screen. A sensor had detected repeated taps. She frowned. That rarely happened. She clicked the feed. Daniel stood still again. Hands at his sides. Lisa marked the alert as cleared. The day continued. Lunch trays slid through slots in the doors. No words exchanged. No faces seen. The silence felt heavier than usual. In the afternoon, maintenance workers checked cables under the prison floor. They were fixing an old power line. No one noticed that one cable was slightly out of place. By evening, clouds covered the sky. The prison lights turned on automatically. That was when the first screen flickered. In the control room, Lisa looked up as one camera feed went dark for half a second. Then it came back. She blamed the weather. Then another screen flickered. Mark, now back inside, felt his radio buzz with static. Just a second. He stopped walking. Static inside ADX Florence was rare. Very rare. At 7:42 p.m., Daniel Harper stood in his cell again. He faced the wall, his back to the camera. He raised his hand. He knocked twice, paused, knocked once, then waited. Deep beneath the prison, a cable vibrated. In the control room, an alert flashed. Unauthorized signal. Lisa's heart jumped. She pulled up the data. It made no sense. The signal was weak, but it followed a pattern. Mark's radio buzzed again. This time longer. Control, this is Reynolds. I'm getting interference. Before Lisa could answer, alarms exploded across the prison. Red lights flashed. Doors slammed shut. Lockdown. Guards froze in place. Inmates were sealed inside. Lisa stared at her screen as lines of code scrolled fast. Someone was using the prison's own systems to send something out. The system designed to stop communication was being used to communicate. Mark ran toward cell block D, but the doors sealed before he could reach it. Inside his cell, Daniel Harper stood calmly. In the control room, the warden arrived, face pale. "Where is the signal coming from?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. "It started in D block, but it's moving." Screens began to go dark, one by one, like blinking eyes. Then one screen stayed on. A text line appeared. No video. No sound. Just words. Message sent. The room went silent. Mark reached for his radio. Nothing. The warden whispered, "Sent to where?" No one answered. At that exact moment, far beyond the prison walls, a server received a data packet. Small, encrypted, clean, and very real. Back inside ADX Florence, guards rushed to isolate cell block D. Power was cut to that section. But when they opened Daniel Harper's cell, he was standing in the center of the room. Calm, silent, waiting, and the cameras were still down. As the guards moved closer, one of them noticed something carved deep into the concrete wall behind Daniel. Small marks, dots, lines, patterns, not random. A code. The prison designed so no one could communicate had just been breached. And whatever message escaped, it was already too late to take it back. The alarms continued to scream as the lights flickered again. Then the main power cut out completely, and the entire prison went dark. The darkness did not last long, but it felt endless. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the prison in dull red. The silence returned, heavier than before. Inside ADX Florence, no one moved unless ordered. No one spoke unless allowed. The power cut had lasted only 20 seconds. That was enough. In the control room, backup systems rebooted. Screens came back one by one. Cameras returned, except for one. Daniel Harper's cell. "Why is that feed still dead?" the warden asked. Lisa Turner typed fast. Her fingers shook. "The camera is online. The signal is blocked. From inside the cell." "That's impossible," the warden said. At ADX Florence, inmates had no access to cables. No tools. No way to block a camera. Mark Reynolds stood outside cell block D with a response team. Heavy vests. Face shields. Shields raised. Daniel Harper stood behind the glass, still calm. "Open the door," the team leader said. Mark hesitated. "Sir, protocol says we wait for full visual." The leader shook his head. Protocol just failed. The door unlocked with a loud click. Inside the cell, nothing looked broken. The bed, the desk, the toilet, all concrete, all clean. Daniel stood with his hands visible. Mark stepped inside carefully. His eyes went straight to the wall. The marks were deeper than he thought. Someone had spent a long time carving them. How did he do this? Mark whispered. Daniel said nothing. The team searched the cell. They found no tools, no wires, no hidden devices. But the wall was warm. One guard touched it and pulled his hand back. That shouldn't be warm. Maintenance was called. Deep under the prison, engineers followed the cable routes. One line showed strange readings. Tiny vibrations. Repeating patterns. "This line runs close to D block," one engineer said. Another frowned. "And it connects to an old backup network. One that still links outside." The warden's face went pale. That line was supposed to be dead. Back in the control room, Lisa replayed the data. The taps. The vibrations. The timing. Daniel had not sent a message through the internet. He had used the building itself. Concrete. Metal. Vibration. The prison had become the signal. Daniel was moved to isolation. The deepest level. No walls shared with any other cell. No cables nearby. As guards led him away, Mark walked beside him. "Who did you contact?" Mark asked. Daniel looked straight ahead. He smiled. That night, the warden made a call to Washington. Federal officials were alerted. Cyber teams. Intelligence units. If a message had escaped ADX Florence, it meant something worse was coming. At 2:13 a.m., the answer arrived. A federal server detected the same signal again. This time, stronger. And it came from inside the prison. Alarms blared once more. Lisa shouted. It's spreading through multiple systems. Screens filled with warnings. Doors malfunctioned. Lock timers froze. The prison that controlled everything was losing control. Mark's radio came alive. Inmate movement detected in D block. That's impossible, Mark said. They are locked in. Then he heard it. A loud metal crash. From deep inside the prison. The lights flickered again. And somewhere in the darkness, a door opened that was never meant to open at all. The door that opened was not a cell door. It was a service door. It led to a narrow hallway used only by maintenance workers. No inmate was ever supposed to be near it. The hallway ran behind the walls, hidden from cameras, hidden from guards. Red lights flashed. Sirens echoed through ADX Florence. Lock everything down, the warden shouted. But the system did not respond. Inside D block, inmates stayed in their cells, confused and silent. They had been trained by years of strict rules. Even now, no one yelled. No one banged on doors. That silence made it worse. Mark Reynolds ran toward the service corridor with two other officers. Their boots hit the concrete hard. Radios crackled with broken messages. Signal interference everywhere, a voice said. We can't control half the doors. Mark reached the open service door. Cold air rushed out from inside. That was wrong. The hallway should have been warm and sealed. He raised his flashlight and stepped in. The light showed scraped walls. Fresh marks. Someone had been here recently. Clear left, one officer said. Clear right, another answered. They moved deeper. Back in the control room, Lisa Turner stared at her screens. The prison map glowed red in places it never had before. There's movement under the east wing, she said. Not inmates. Systems. The warden frowned. What does that mean? Lisa swallowed. It means something is running. In isolation, Daniel Harper sat on his bed. His new cell had no shared walls. No cables nearby. No vents big enough to pass air. Yet the tapping had started again. Soft. Slow. Steady. A guard outside his cell froze. The sound was not coming from inside the cell. It was coming from the floor. The guard backed away and called it in. Mark's radio buzzed. We have activity near isolation. Possible breach. Mark turned. That's impossible. His sealed. The hallway lights flickered. Then went dark. Mark's flashlight beam shook as he aimed it forward. At the end of the corridor, a panel slid open. Not forced. Unlocked. A low hum filled the air. Fall back. Mark shouted. Too late. Every door in the service hallway slammed shut at once. The officers were trapped. In the control room, Lisa screamed. He's inside the backup grid. He's using systems we didn't even know were active. The warden's face drained of color. Daniel Harper leaned back on his bed. For the first time in years, he spoke. They built this place to stop voices, he said calmly. Outside his cell, the lights exploded into darkness. And they forgot, Daniel continued, smiling softly, that buildings can speak too. Somewhere deep inside ADX Florence, the prison answered back with another violent metal crash, louder than before, followed by the sound every officer feared most. Multiple locks disengaging at the same time. The first door opened by itself. It was not loud. It did not slam. It simply clicked. That small sound carried through the silent prison like thunder. Officer Mark Reynolds stood frozen in the service hallway. The red emergency lights flickered back on, weak and shaking. One of the sealed doors behind him slid open halfway, then stopped. This can't be happening, one officer whispered. ADX Florence was built so no door ever opened without command approval. Not from inside. Not from outside. Yet the door was moving. In the control room, Lisa Turner's hands trembled over the keyboard. Every override she tried failed. The system refused her access like she did not exist. It's like the prison doesn't recognize us anymore, she said. Like we're locked out. The warden slammed his fist on the desk. Who is doing this? Lisa did not answer. She already knew. Daniel Harper's cell camera flickered to life on one of the screens. The image was grainy, unstable. Daniel sat calmly on his bed, hands folded, eyes open. He was not touching anything. He was not moving. but the system was responding to him. In isolation, the tapping stopped. Then the floor vibrated. Daniel felt it through his boots. A deep rumble moved under the concrete, traveling like a slow heartbeat. The prison's hidden spaces were waking up. Years ago, ADX Florence was designed so inmates could not speak to each other. No shared air vents. No shared walls. No shared sound. But the builders forgot one thing. Every system connects somewhere. Pipes, power lines, emergency backups, old maintenance tunnels sealed on blueprints but never removed. Daniel had spent years listening, counting seconds between power cycles, learning the prison's rhythm. Now, it was his turn to speak. In D block, inmates sat on their bunks as their cell lights blinked on and off. Doors did not open, but the locks clicked softly, over and over, as if confused. One inmate whispered a prayer. Another pressed his ear to the wall. They could feel it. Something was wrong. Officer Mark forced open the half-open door and stepped into the next corridor. This hallway was older. Dust coated the floor. No cameras watched this space. Why was this even left here? An officer asked. Before Mark could answer, a metal gate ahead slid open fully. Fresh air rushed in. Beyond the gate was a stairwell. Going down. No, Mark said. That area was sealed. The radio crackled to life again. Daniel's calm voice came through every channel at once. I told them, the voice said, steady and clear, that silence doesn't stop connection. It only hides it. The officers froze. The warden stared at the radio like it was cursed. How is he broadcasting? He demanded. Lisa's eyes widened. He's using the emergency audio test line. It runs through every block. That's impossible, the warden said. Lisa shook her head slowly. Not if he learned where the blind spots are. In isolation, Daniel stood up. His cell door did not open, but the wall beside it slid back by 2 inches. Just enough to show darkness beyond. Years ago, during construction, a panel was installed and never removed from the system map. It had no camera, no alarm. Daniel had waited for this moment. He stepped closer. The prison groaned. Deep inside ADX Florence, something gave way with a loud metallic snap. On Lisa's screen, a warning flashed that had never appeared before. Unauthorized internal pathway active. Her breath caught. The warden whispered, that pathway doesn't exist. But the screen said otherwise. In the service stairwell, Mark looked down into the darkness. The air smelled old. Forgotten. Then footsteps echoed from below. Not running. Walking. Slow and calm. And they were coming up. The footsteps stopped halfway up the stairs. Officer Mark Reynolds raised his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark and landed on empty concrete steps. No one was there. But the air felt different now. Heavier. Like the prison was holding its breath. Control. Mark whispered into his radio. There's movement in the sealed stairwell. But I don't see anyone. Static answered him. Then Daniel Harper's voice came back, calm and even. You're looking in the wrong direction, the voice said. Behind Mark, the metal gate slammed shut. The sound echoed through the corridor, loud and final. Mark spun around. His heart pounded hard against his chest. The gate that had opened minutes ago was now locked tight. The manual release did nothing. We're trapped, one officer said, panic creeping into his voice. Back in the control room, alarms finally began to scream. Not the normal alarms. These were deeper. Slower. Emergency alerts meant for disasters no one wanted to imagine. Lisa Turner stared at the screen as system maps redrew themselves in real time. Hidden corridors appeared. Old access paths lit up. Sections of the prison that were never supposed to connect now touched like puzzle pieces forced together. He's waking the whole structure, Lisa said. Every backup system. Every forgotten route. The warden felt cold sweat roll down his neck. Shut it down. I can't, Lisa replied. He's not breaking in. He's using what's already here. In D block, inmates sat perfectly still in their cells. The rules of ADX were clear. Move at the wrong time, and punishment came fast. But tonight, the rules were bending. Lights flickered. Air vents hummed louder than usual. One inmate noticed something strange. A soft tapping sound moved through the wall. It wasn't random. It was patterned. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Pause. Another inmate heard it too. For the first time in years, inmates realized they were not alone. Daniel Harper stepped fully into the narrow gap beside his cell wall. The hidden space was tight, dark, and dusty. He knew exactly where to place his feet. He had mapped this place in his mind long before tonight. His prison uniform brushed against old cables running along the wall. He followed them like a guide rope. Each step brought him closer to the heart of ADX Florence, the place where silence was controlled, the place where no inmate should ever reach. In the stairwell, Mark and his team worked desperately on the gate. Tools clanged against metal. Nothing worked. Then the lights went out again. Complete darkness. Someone shouted. The radio crackled once more. "This is your warning," Daniel's voice said, still calm. "Stop searching for me. Lock down your offices, or this place will start opening doors you can't close." "Where are you?" the warden shouted into the MIC. There was a short pause. Then Daniel answered. "Inside," he said. A new alert flashed on Lisa's screen. "Central isolation node. Access granted." Her hands froze. "That node controls inmate separation," she whispered. "If that fails." The warden finished the sentence for her. "No one is isolated anymore." Deep underground, a massive steel door began to unlock. Slowly, loudly, and for the first time since ADX Florence was built, the prison's greatest rule was about to be broken. The steel door finished unlocking with a low, shaking boom. Inside the control room, every screen flashed at once. Red warnings stacked on top of each other. Separation failure. Zone B override. Inmate movement possible. "No, no, no," Lisa Turner whispered, standing up so fast her chair fell backward. ADX Florence was designed so inmates never met, never spoke, never even saw each other clearly. That door controlled the invisible walls between them. And it was open. In D block, the sound reached the inmates like thunder. A deep metal groan rolled through the concrete. Some men covered their ears. Others pressed their faces close to the narrow slit in their doors, eyes wide. For the first time, footsteps echoed where there should have been silence. A door down the corridor clicked. Then another. Not fully open. Just enough. Enough to see. Enough to hear breathing that was not their own. Guards rushed toward the sound, boots pounding hard against the floor. Officer Mark Reynolds had finally forced the stairwell gate halfway open when the lights came back on. But now the prison looked wrong. Doors that were always sealed showed thin black gaps. Red emergency lights painted the walls like warning stains. "Control, confirm inmate doors," Mark shouted. Lisa's voice came back, tight with fear. "Partial releases in D block and C block. Not full access, but enough for contact." Mark swallowed hard. Contact was what ADX was built to stop. Down the corridor, an inmate slowly pushed his hand through the opening of his door. He froze when he saw another hand doing the same thing across from him. Two men, separated for years, now inches apart. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. In the hidden passageways, Daniel Harper moved faster now. The calm planning stage was over. The prison had noticed him fully. His bare feet slapped softly against concrete as he reached a narrow ladder leading up. He climbed, muscles burning, counting every rung. Above him was the communications spine of the prison, the place where all silence was enforced. Back in the control room, the warden grabbed the emergency phone. "Federal command needs to know. Now." "They won't get here in time," Lisa said quietly. On her screen, a new message appeared. Not an alert. A manual input. A single line of text. "Listen." Speakers across ADX Florence crackled to life. In every cell, every corridor, every control room, Daniel's voice filled the prison. 20 years, he said. That's how long this place has kept men apart so they forget they are human. Tonight, they remember. Inmates stood frozen. Guards looked at each other in disbelief. "This is not a riot," Daniel continued. "This is proof." Mark felt a chill run through him. Proof of what? Lisa's fingers flew over the keyboard. His broadcasting through internal maintenance channels. Old ones. We didn't even know they still worked. Daniel's voice lowered. "You built a prison where no one could communicate," he said. "But you forgot something." The screens flickered again. Old blueprints appeared. Handwritten notes layered over them. "You forgot that prisons are built by people," Daniel said. "And people leave mistakes." Suddenly, a door at the far end of D block slid fully open. An inmate stepped out. Guards raised their weapons instantly. But the inmate didn't run. He just stood there, blinking under the lights, breathing free air for the first time in years. Then another door opened. And another. Lisa screamed, "Daniel, stop. If this goes any further, people will get hurt." There was a pause. Then Daniel answered softly. "That depends," he said, "on what you choose to do next." At that exact moment, A final alert flashed across every screen in the control room. External gate status, unconfirmed. The warden stared at it in horror. "Tell me that doesn't mean what I think it means," he said. Lisa didn't answer. Because outside, somewhere beyond the concrete and razor wire, something had just unlocked. Outside ADX Florence, the night wind moved slowly across the empty land. The outer gate lights flickered once, then stayed on. The metal barrier that had not opened without full authorization in years made a low mechanical sound. Not wide, not fully, just enough to change everything. Inside the prison, alarms exploded all at once. This time, there was no calm warning tone. This was the sound reserved for the worst case. Full emergency. In the control room, red light washed over every face. The warden grabbed the rail of the console to steady himself. "Lock it back down," he shouted. "Every system. Manual if you have to." Lisa Turner was already trying. Her fingers shook as she typed override commands that should have worked. They didn't. "The system is rejecting us," she said. "It's treating our commands like outside interference." Mark Reynolds was running now, breath heavy, radio crackling with overlapping voices. "Inmate doors are opening in waves," a guard shouted through the radio. "Not all at once. Like someone's pacing it." That was when Mark understood. This wasn't chaos. It was control. In D block, inmates stepped into the hallway one by one. No shouting. No rushing. Just men standing, confused, scared, and silent. They had been trained by years of isolation not to make noise. Some guards lowered their weapons slightly, unsure. ADX inmates were dangerous, yes, but they were also conditioned to stillness. Daniel Harper knew that. In the maintenance spine, Daniel reached a sealed panel and pulled it open. Inside were cables older than the prison itself. Backup lines never fully removed. He knelt and connected the final device. A small green light blinked. "Phase 2, he whispered. Across the prison, the broadcast returned. "This is the moment they never planned for," Daniel's voice said calmly. "Too many doors open to punish everyone. Too many eyes watching to hide it." Lisa slammed her fist on the desk. "He's forcing our hand," she said. "If we use force now, it becomes a national scandal." The warden stared at the screens. Inmates standing still. Guards frozen between orders and instinct. "Where is he?" the warden demanded. Lisa zoomed the camera grid again and again. Then she saw it. A moving dot where no movement should exist. "Sublevel access," she said. "He's heading toward the external service corridor." Mark heard it through his earpiece. "I'm closest," he said. "I'll intercept." He turned down a narrow hall that smelled of oil and cold concrete. The lights above him buzzed weakly. Then they went out. Mark slowed, weapon raised. Footsteps echoed ahead. Not running. Walking. "Daniel Harper," Mark called out. "It's over. Turn around." The footsteps stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Daniel spoke from the darkness. "Do you know why ADX works?" Daniel asked calmly. "Not the walls. Not the locks." Mark didn't answer. "It works because everyone believes no one can break it," Daniel said. "Belief is stronger than steel." The lights snapped back on. Daniel stood at the far end of the corridor, unarmed. Thin. Calm. Almost ordinary. Mark took a step forward. At that exact second, every inmate door in C block slid fully open. Lisa gasped. "He did it," she whispered. "He synchronized it." The prison held its breath. One wrong move could turn silence into violence. Daniel raised his hands slowly. "I'm not here to escape," he said. "I'm here to finish the message." "What message?" Mark asked. Daniel looked straight at the camera mounted above them. That a prison designed to erase voices can still be heard. Outside, distant headlights appeared on the road leading to ADX Florence. Federal response teams were arriving. Inside, the system timer reached 0. A final command executed. "System reset in progress." Lisa screamed. "No, if it resets now." The screens went black. Every lock. Every door. Every light. For 3 long seconds, ADX Florence was completely dark. And no one knew what would come back on first. The darkness ended as suddenly as it began. Lights snapped back on in sections, not all at once. Hallways glowed white, then blue, then steady again. Doors froze mid-motion. Some were open. Some were shut. Some were locked halfway, grinding softly like they were confused. In the control room, screens flickered back to life. Lisa Turner stared at them, heart racing. "The reset didn't follow priority order," she said. "It's random." The warden didn't reply. He was watching one camera. C block. Inmates stood in the hallway, hands visible, backs against the wall. Years of isolation had trained them well. No one moved. No one spoke. Guards slowly stepped forward, weapons raised but fingers off the trigger. For the first time in ADX history, prisoners and officers stood face to face in open space. Mark Reynolds was still in the service corridor. Daniel Harper hadn't moved. The reset alarm chimed once, then stopped. "Now," Daniel said quietly. "What?" Mark asked. "The part where they decide what kind of prison this really is." Mark's radio crackled. Lisa's voice broke through. "Mark, don't engage," she said. "We've regained partial control, but not enough. If he triggers anything else." Daniel smiled slightly. "I don't need to trigger anything," he said. "I already showed them." Outside, federal vehicles rolled to a stop. Men in dark uniforms moved fast, weapons ready, eyes scanning the concrete giant in front of them. Inside the prison, the warden straightened his jacket. "No force," he said firmly. "Not unless absolutely necessary." A senior officer turned to him in disbelief. "Sir, he shut down ADX Florence." "Yes," the warden replied. "And the world is about to know that." In the corridor, Daniel slowly knelt and placed a small device on the floor. He slid it toward Mark with 2 fingers. "It's done," Daniel said. "Everything I built shuts itself down in 60 seconds. Mark picked it up carefully. "You could have escaped," Mark said. Daniel looked tired now. "That was never the point," he replied. "If one man can walk out, they call it a failure. If one man can stop the prison without leaving his cell, they call it a question." In the control room, Lisa watched the system stabilize. Locks reasserted. Doors closed gently. One by one, inmates were secured again without a single injury. No riot. No blood. Just silence. Federal agents entered the prison minutes later and took Daniel into custody. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. As he passed the control room, he looked up at the glass. Lisa met his eyes. For the first time, she felt unsure whether she had protected the prison or proven him right. By morning, official reports would call it a contained systems incident. No mention of open doors. No mention of how close it came. But inside ADX Florence, something had changed. Every guard now knew the walls were not perfect. Every administrator knew silence could be broken. And deep in the prison logs, buried under layers of classified data, was one final line Daniel had left behind. System functional. Assumptions compromised. The prison stood again. But the belief that no one could ever communicate inside ADX Florence was gone forever.